After all these years of drive-through history, I've had the opportunity to experience a wide variety of cars from around the world. As part of Father's Day, the production team invited me out to Colorado to reminisce about nearly 20 years of awesome car segments together.
When I got here to Colorado, the guys surprised me with our cleaned up and restored drive-through history vehicle for the U.S., the classic 1978 Jeep CJ7. After many years as a Jeep for the U.S. military, the CJ version stands for Civilian Jeep. It has a 258 cubic inch motor with a 4-speed manual transmission. This particular Jeep was an abandoned project, which sat in pieces in the Arizona desert for many years. A U.S. Special Forces soldier rescued it and put it back together again. And now it's ours, fully outfitted for drive-through history adventures throughout America. My Jeep's name is Trigger, after Roy Rogers' horse in all those old Western films. Roy Rogers was a great American and a major role model for kids in the 1950s. He and his wife, Dale Evans, were outspoken Christians and advocates for children's charities and adoption. Roy Rogers had an awesome cowboy code for all the young members of his popular Riders Club.
Be neat and clean. Be courteous and polite. Always obey your parents. Protect the weak and help them. Be brave, but never take chances. Study hard and learn all you can. Be kind to animals and care for them. Eat all your food and never waste any. Love God and go to Sunday school regularly. Always respect our flag and our country.
Since we're all about God and country here at Drive Thru History, my Jeep comes complete with the Gadsden flag, a symbol of resolve during the American Revolutionary War, and the Betsy Ross flag, a symbol of America's founding principles. And I guess this Jeep was released as part of the Levi's edition back in the day, so that's nice. We restored Trigger so that I could ramble around the United States and explore some of America's exceptional history. And let me tell you, it feels great to get back out on the road again.
That's right.
This style of Jeep connects to an important era in American history. When I think back on all the cars I've driven throughout the world, I have to say it's the vintage models, representing a piece of the country's history, that have made the most impact on me. I recently saw a Lego model of a swoopy, vintage Ford Mustang Fastback. Due to its complex curves, it had 1,473 parts. It inspired me to build a Lego version of the car I'll be driving here in Kiev. There are a lot fewer parts, because this is a Russian Lada.
This 1980 Lada was built by the former Soviet company AutoVAZ. Loosely translated, AutoVAZ means automobile factory. The first car from the automobile factory was the Lada, which oddly is named after a boat, which was originally based on the Fiat 124 sedan. The Lada has a long history in Russia and a number of Eastern European countries. They were built to be simple and practical for a wide range of uses, such as police cars, taxis, and public service vehicles. I'd like to introduce you to my ride while in Paris, the 1967 Citroen DS. I'm liking those initials. Famous for its aerodynamic and futuristic body design and the innovative hydro-pneumatic self-leveling suspension, I personally liked the super spacious interior, retro features, and this somewhat mind-boggling manual gear shift that comes right out of the steering column. You would not believe the number of heads I turned driving around the City of Lights. I'd like to think that has something to do with the car, too. Jeepneys are the most popular means of public transportation in the Philippines. They are known for their crowded seating and crazy paint jobs. They are a well-known symbol of Philippine culture. So much so that a jeepney was exhibited in the Philippine Pavilion for the 1964 World's Fair as a national image for the Filipino people.
Jeepneys were originally made from U.S. military jeeps left over from World War II. Some say jeepney is a combination of the words jeep and jitney, popular slang for an American taxicab during wartime. Others say the word comes from jeep and knee, because passengers are jammed in so tight that their knees take a beating. I got to borrow this classic jeepney for my journey around the Philippines. Maybe they'll even let me pick up a few passengers along the way. You probably noticed that driving vintage often means driving manual. I figure all fathers should be able to drive a stick. So here's my Father's Day gift to all the guys out there. Hey dads, huddle up. Guy talk. With all the challenges of raising kids in the 21st century, I'm afraid I have one more burden to place on your sagging shoulders. You see, with all the smartphone use and espresso swilling while driving, kids no longer learn how to drive manual transmissions. The demand has dropped, and our corporate overlords have stopped offering them. And kids today don't know what they're missing. I'm so concerned about this that I'm a proud card-carrying member of Save the Manuals, an obscure, loosely formed, and largely ineffective ad hoc group of automotive enthusiasts. So, it is your job, dads, to pass on this ancient skill set. Why? Because it builds character. Duh. Does a dad need a better reason than that? Now, imagine the scene. You are a newly minted teenage manual transmission driver waiting at a light on a hill. The pressure mounts, the light turns green, and it's going to happen. As will inadvertently dumping the clutch and stalling the car in traffic. Car horns behind you begin honking. Now that's pressure. How unfair. But there's no one to plead your victimhood case to, so you must simply buck up and deal with it. Like magic, you have more character. So for you teens who are watching and dads who need a refresher, allow me to demonstrate. Now in manual vehicles, there's a third pedal on the floor. That is the clutch pedal. Now today's vehicles have 5, 6, or even 7 speeds. This 1978 Jeep has 4. Trust me, way back in the 70s, people were tougher, and doggone it, they were happy with 4. Now, to make things slightly confusing, first gear in this Jeep is really low. The reason for that is Jeeps get in tough terrain where you might need a super low gear. This is sometimes called a granny gear. No offense to all the grannies out there. So for road use, we start in second. Now depress the clutch to the floor. Then move the lever into second gear. And then, this is the tricky part, gradually lift off the clutch while giving it some gas. Now, how quickly you do this and how much gas you give will vary from car to car. This is where you develop the skill to do it smoothly. To shift to the next gear, simply depress the clutch, move it to the next gear, and then let the clutch out. On older vehicles like this, you might want to blip the throttle a little bit between shifts. It helps keep things smooth. As you come to a stop, you may need to reverse this process. It's called downshifting, and you will always want to depress the clutch and roll to a stop. Rinse and repeat. There you have it. Mystery gone. Easy peasy. Now, let me tell you one more secret. You don't really learn to drive a manual because it builds character. You do it because it makes you a better driver, and because it's fun. Happy motoring. Now, sometimes the rickety old foreign vehicles do get tiresome. They just kind of wear you out. That's when we step up our game and find some truly awesome cars.
This is the 2021 Corvette Stingray C8 convertible. The C8 is the long-awaited mid-engine redesign of the Corvette that has captivated car enthusiasts around the world. After all the old vintage cars I've driven over the years, this is probably the sweetest, most powerful vehicle I've ever had the pleasure to experience.
This is one local attempt at having your cake and eating it too. This is the Mitsuoka Rockstar.
At first glance, you might think this car looks oddly familiar, like a vintage Corvette, but it's not quite right. What exactly am I looking at? Well, what we have here is an homage to the second-generation Chevy Corvette from the 1960s. The Rockstar is actually a four-cylinder Mazda Miata that has been rebodied to look like a Corvette, and it's only sold here in Japan.
The instant giveaways are the interior and the windscreen, which are familiar to anyone who's driven the Mazda. And no Corvette has ever had a four-banger. Though the Mazda engine and chassis are virtually unmodified, I will agree that the visual change is dramatic and fun. What you're left with is a car somewhat reminiscent of old American muscle, with the fuel economy and driving performance of a modern Miata. The Rockstar is a unique mashup of time and culture. This is a 1967 Chevy convertible Corvette. This was the final year in the number 2 body design, or the C2, which many collectors consider to be the iconic shape for the Corvette. Let's take a look under the hood. It's got a 327 cubic inch V8, which pushes 300 horses. And these cool side exhausts. And this will be our ride as we journey through the American South, starting in Atlanta. You know, sometimes I go for more of a road warrior vibe. If you're gonna drive through the history of one of the most courageous, selfless, heroic statesmen in our nation's founding era, then I figure you could go with something like this, a 1980 H1 Hummer. Comes complete with an interior and an exterior. Got the little whirly-burly, got the little circular intake. It's got one of these. I think that's the fluid junction valve, one of my favorite features. One of these cool headlights with the shiny things. Wow. You can do your squats in case you get hijacked and someone has stolen the vehicle. You're trying to get back in it. You got your handles here to crawl back in and punch it. No trailer hitch is complete without 2 additional trailer hitches. Oh man, check out these big old beefy tires. Love these things. Ow, Benedict Arnold! But it is a long way back to Cairo, and I'm not about to get on the back of another camel. So I've arranged for a 1988 K5 GMC Jimmy to be my ride back to Cairo. In the end, Drive Thru History has allowed me to live out a car fantasy that many guys share around the world. Now, one of the greatest Father's Day gifts I receive from my family each year is the time, support, and understanding for me to travel the world making TV shows about God, history, and cars.